Hello, I'm Luke, and welcome to another episode of the Vision to Victory podcast, where we discuss practical ways to turn your dreams into reality. A couple weeks ago, we discussed the topic of getting from here to there, getting from wherever you're at in your life, in any area of your life, to where you want to be. And there's 4 key components we discussed. The first was being honest with yourself. The second was directly addressing the things that are keeping you from where you want to get to. The third was making a plan, even if it's a bad one. And the fourth was do it anyway. When you don't feel like it, even when there's, reasons or excuses, do it anyway. And last week, I wanted to unpack one of those, which was do it anyway, which is so critical. And today I want to do something similar, and I want to unpack being honest with yourself. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is being honest with yourself. And I would start with this question. How honest do you think you are with yourself? How honest are you really? It's worth mulling over. It's worth contemplating what you think your answer would be. You don't have to tell anyone, but just be honest with yourself. If I asked you this question directly, if we were sitting across, from each other, what would you say? Next question is, what would you say if I were to ask you what is most important to you in life? Maybe the top 3 things, top 3, 4, whatever it is. What are the most important things to you in life? Now, if I had a detailed log of how you spend your time, how you spend your money, where you expend energy, would it reflect what you just said was important to you? So you list a few things that are the most important things to you, according to you. And if I or you or anybody were to look at a detailed log of how you spend your time and money, would they line up? Candidly, most people, the answer is no. Yet we are very oftentimes apprehensive to look at these things honestly and get real about how the things in our life don't line up with where we want to be and where we want to go. And so I would take that as kind of the framework of simply just, okay, if I was asked what's most important to me, and then I had to give an explanation for where I spend my time and money, again, would the explanation be, well, I spend my time and money there because those are the things that are most important to me? Or would it be difficult to explain because where you spend your time and money doesn't reflect at all your priorities or what you say is most important to you? So again, back to getting from here to there, is there an area of your life that you want to make progress? So if you could think of one thing, one area in your life where you're like, man, I really would like this to be different. I really would like, to make progress in this area. It could be finances, maybe you want to get out of debt. Maybe you have a goal of financial freedom. I've certainly, that is important to me. So I can relate to that. Maybe it's you want to get healthy. We talk about this a lot. Maybe you want to get physically healthy and you're just not there right now. And that's an area that you would like to see progress. Maybe it's spiritually. Maybe you feel, a little empty, lacking meaning in your life, and you would like a sense of purpose and kind of spiritual connection. Whatever it is, once you identify, maybe the area that you want to make progress in, the obvious question is, what is keeping you from making that progress? And again, as you're thinking through this, think in terms of being completely honest with yourself. Again, you don't have to tell this to anybody, but if you want to make progress in any area of your life, it starts with being really, really honest with yourself about why you are where you are. If it's not where you want to be, why are you here? And what's keeping you there? And then again, another way of saying what we were saying earlier about, does your time and money where you spend it reflect what you say is important to you? Another way to look at that is, do you fit your actions to your goals? In other words, if I have the goal to get fit, does my do my actions reflect that goal? In other words, am I exercising? Am I at least making some sort of intentional change that is necessary in my eating? Do the actions that you take reflect your goals? Do you fit your actions to your goals? Or, unfortunately, what's most common is, do you change your goals? Or you could even say, do you lower your goals to fit your lifestyle? This is a big one. And, I'll be honest, this makes me sad when I see this. And unfortunately, it's too common. And I don't want it for you. I certainly don't want it for my own life and the people that I care about. And so I want to hit this home. Most people lower their goals, lower their dreams, lower their standards to fit how they are currently doing life. The problem is, this is perhaps obvious, but if you're not where you want to be, then you're going to have to do things differently. And so if you're just lowering your goals to what you can do with your current habits, with your current time and money and energy, expenditure, wherever you're spending those things, if you just lower your goals so that you don't have to do what's necessary to get you where you want to go, if you just don't want to make any change to get you where you want to go, unfortunately, that's a sad story, and it doesn't have a great ending. You stay stuck is the bottom line. And so the sooner we get honest with ourselves, and the sooner we're willing to evaluate, what's keeping us where we are, if where we are is not where we want to be, then the sooner we can make progress. So you got to get honest about why you are where you are and what's keeping you there. And then you got to get really honest and ask yourself, okay, if I really want to be here, let's say again, that's maybe financial freedom, am I willing to make changes in my lifestyle to get there? So I'm going to give a personal example on this, because this one, is money specifically. I think money plays such a key role in all of our lives. You can't buy food. You can't have a home and a bed if you don't have money, of course. And so there's some misconceptions about money. And, I had to work through some of these myself, many years ago. Some people think that money's bad, or that maybe if someone's wealthy, that they're somehow a bad person. And frankly, nothing could be further from the truth. Where money can get you into trouble, as with anything, is when it becomes the focus. It becomes the goal. It becomes, it takes too much of a priority, where money is the thing. Money is a tool. The reality is money is a tool. It's a tool for how we live life. Again, a very necessary one. But if you think that getting money so that you can just get a bunch of stuff is going to leave you satisfied, it's cliche, but it won't. It won't. But we need it. And so for me, again, kind of my personal example here is, I determined at some point in my life that I didn't want money to be an obstacle in my own life. So I've been broke. There were many times in my life where I didn't do something I wanted to do because I didn't have the money. It sucks, by the way. I hate the way that feels. And, after experiencing that several times, I don't even know, many, many times, I just resolved with myself, like, okay, I do not want this to be the story of the rest of my life, where, I am not living the life I want because I haven't done what needs to be done so that I can have financial freedom. And again, I just can't stress this enough. This is often the catalyst for change, is when you have that visceral, like, I hate the way this feels. I hate the way this feels. I had something similar. Look, I went through a phase in my life where I was not exercising. I was eating terrible. I'd put on weight. And, I just remember looking in the mirror one day like, oh God, this is gross. I don't like feeling this way at all. And that was the catalyst of what prompted change in my life. And that is often the case. We get sick and tired of being sick and tired and like, man, I want to do something different. And so for me, again, just back to this personal example of money, I realized like, okay, I hate the feeling of not being able to do the things I want to do simply because I don't have money. And side note here, many people, the first response is to blame something external. While I've certainly done that in my own life, candidly, I'm the kind of person that tends to be most critical of myself. And so I recognize that if I'm not in the financial place that I want to be, it's on me. It's on me. Nobody can do that for me. And so it was a process for me, but again, about getting honest with myself about why it is that I didn't have money, that, or at least the money that I wanted to have so that I could do the things I wanted to do. And, there's a couple things that stick out to me. And look, it's not, a lot of people think that, when it comes to money, it's like, okay, make sure you save and, adjust your spending habits. And while those are important things, that will only get you so far. And I would say there's some more important and kind of things with a little more substance than that. And so a couple things for me that I realized were, one, I did not have a good financial education. I didn't understand how money works. And if you're hearing this and you're thinking, what do you mean how money works? You get it, you make you work a job, you get paid, and then you spend it, you buy the things you need or whatever. If that's you, you don't have a good financial education either, because that's where I was. Like, how hard? Money's money. I just use it I earn it, get the things I want. And one of the best ways to get a really good financial education is be around people who have done well financially. You'll learn a whole new language. You'll learn about multiple streams of income. You'll learn some financial terms around investing that were helpful. And don't worry, I didn't know anything about anything really when it came to this area of my life. And so when I got around some people who knew more than I did, it made me feel insecure for a while. And you will probably feel the same, but set that aside. We're all bad at everything until we learn it, right? And so if you try anything new, you will not be good at it. You will not understand it until you do the work to learn it, right? And so money's no different than that. And a good financial education is great. I'm going to give a quick note here. If you want, really, in my opinion, one of the easiest, best ways to get just a good financial framework, read a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. It's very short. It's easy read. It's very entertaining. It's kind of anecdotal. It's told in story form, and it breaks down in a way that, again, it's entertaining, very easy to understand, some of the most basic financial principles that I believe everybody should know. And it really will, if you can just understand these basic principles and apply them in your life, it will change the way you see money. So again, things that I realized when I got honest with myself about the situation in my finances. And number one, I didn't have a good financial education. And number two, my lifestyle was not headed in a direction that was going to get me anywhere near where I wanted to get to. For me, I've talked about this before. I prioritize social activity over everything. Guess what? If that's you, if you want to be financially successful, you cannot center your life around social activity. Of course, I talk about this all the time on this channel, that connection, deep, meaningful connection, is a critical part of life and meaning and purpose and all of those things. And that is definitely true. That is very different than I'm going to go hang out with the buddies, maybe drink some beers or whatever it is, 4 or 5 minutes a week, whatever it is. And, everyone's different. So, I could probably give examples to hit everybody, but just have the awareness to recognize, again, where your priorities are based on where you spend your time. Again, most people say one thing, you spend their time somewhere else. Look at where you're spending your time and then assess, okay, clearly I'm making these things a priority. Again, for me, it was just social activity, just hanging out with friends. Again, I talked about this a lot, usually drinking alcohol. And that was just a huge part of my life for, most of my 20s. And it was such a waste. And as I started to get honest with myself, I realized there was no way that I was going to get to where I wanted to be, really in many areas of life, but specifically financially in this example. And I realized that I needed to make some changes. Change can be hard, and it didn't happen overnight for me. But once I started to incrementally make changes, for me, it just meant, okay, getting really honest about who my real friends are. And, for me, again, I just cut out alcohol. I needed to, for the well-being of my life, again, it was taking up too much space. And, and then I quickly learned as a result of that, like a lot of the friends that I had were just, buddies that I would drink with. They weren't, close connections. And once I, got rid of those things, again, for me, alcohol and kind of wasted, quote, social time, I had all this extra time and room and space and energy and all this space. And then once you clear away the stuff that is holding you back, what you fill that space with really, really matters. It's like if you're going to take the time and effort to make the change to create space, make sure you fill the space with good stuff. Don't just clear out, bad or kind of worthless stuff to put more bad and worthless stuff in. Don't, make space with, by cutting out social activity with people who are really just a drain on your energy to then put in social media and TV. Like it's not a good trade, again, you need to create the space, to get where you want to go. Again, for me in this example, I wanted financial freedom. So I'm like, all right, whatever I need to do to make these changes. And look, there are some other changes that I had to make, that was kind of to make space. And then I had to make some decisions about what I wanted to do or what I needed to do to move forward. And the financial education piece really helped with this because, I ended up starting a business. Guess what I knew about business? On a scale of 1 to 10, I knew somewhere between 0 and 2, right? But I learned that the people who were where I wanted to be financially, this is one of the many ways that you can get there. There's kind of like multiple streams of income. A lot of wealthy people have a business. And so again, we talk a lot about this, but I didn't factor into the equation what's easy. Like what could I do, that's going to be quick and easy, because that's not going to get you where you want to get. For me, that was definitely not going to get me where I wanted to go. Whatever skills and kind of understanding and education framework I had in my life at this time had gotten me to where I was, which was not where I wanted to be. So if I wanted to get somewhere else, I needed to be willing to just rethink kind of just about everything. I mean, not that's maybe a little extreme, but I think you get the point of, okay, I need to learn new things. I need to do new things because whatever I'm doing now is not getting me where I want to go. So hopefully you're willing to be that honest with yourself about what's keeping you stuck. Look, again, maybe it's financial habits you need to change. Maybe it's, unhealthy habits, whether, again, I use my own example of drinking alcohol. Maybe for you, it's social media. Maybe it's, gossiping with your friends. Maybe it's video games. Whatever it is, you have to be really honest with yourself. And again, I find this dynamic so interesting that we as humans do this, where we have a goal, we have a dream, we have something in our life that we would like to realize, like we would like to arrive here at some point. And yet we make excuses for ourselves to not get to where we want to go. It's crazy if you think about it, but it's due to our natural tendency to prioritize comfort and prioritize, not expending energy and all those things. And we have to, I've used this term on here before, stand up to ourselves and be willing to not only be honest with ourselves, but be willing to make the changes, be willing to do the uncomfortable. And only then can we make progress. You cannot make progress if you're not willing to be honest about what's got you where you're at, be honest about what's keeping you there, and then be willing to make changes. You will never make progress if you won't do those things. And so, I could talk and talk and talk about being honest with yourself, but at the end of the day, the life that you lead can in some way, shape, or form always be tied back to how honest you are with yourself. And then when you are honest with yourself, if you can get yourself to a point where you can be relentless and not give yourself room for excuses and reasons, but just be really direct with yourself about what, what's going on in your life, what you'd like to see happen, and, what changes you have avoided making that you need to make. If you can be honest about that and then be willing to take one step at a time in a different direction, I promise you can change your life. It does not always take crazy big changes, but it does take clarity on what's got you stuck in a place you don't want to be, and clarity on at least the willingness to take one step at a time. I talk to people often who have these ideas and these goals, and they say that they want to do this and they want to do that, and then nothing ever changes, and they're still spending their time and money and energy, all those things, in the exact same places. And my response to that would be, is you don't really want it. You must rather, it's more important to you that you do those other things, again, whether it's social activity or video games, whatever it is, that's really your priority. That's really what you want. Because if you wanted something different, you would do something different. And the truth is, people wish for things. It's kind of like, oh, it'd be nice if I won the lottery. That doesn't mean anything. Yeah, no kidding. Everybody wants a handout. If somebody would hand me money, like, great, I'll take free money. That means nothing. What actually has substance in our life is what we are willing to take action towards. And I don't want to discount the difficulty of making change, because it really can be difficult, especially if you've got, what I would call deep-rooted habits, maybe some type of addictive behavior. Making change can be difficult, but I would pose the question, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? The alternative is you stay stuck year after year, giving yourself reasons for, not getting where you want to go. And then you get a little more depressed, every time, talked about this a lot, but every time that we want to do something, or we say we're going to do something, particularly to ourselves, I mean, certainly to other people, but if we commit to doing something and then we don't do it, it creates this tension. Again, this is called cognitive dissonance, that makes us feel uncomfortable. It steals our confidence. It steals our joy, our sense of well-being, because we are not even in alignment with what we want for our own lives. And I hope that you want something better than that. And it starts by being honest with yourself. It starts by taking one step at a time in a direction that you want to go. It doesn't matter how small the steps are. If you keep taking small steps, you will get there eventually, but you're never going to get anywhere different if you're not honest about how you got to where you are. I hope this was helpful for somebody. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you next week.